What's up, Giants fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I want to break down Big Blue's 53-man roster that was revealed earlier today. Now, keep in mind, this is the initial 53-man roster. So, with the waiver wire happening tomorrow around noon, things could definitely change. I expect a couple of things to change for the Giants. They may want to add a linebacker or a wide receiver. We'll definitely see what happens there. But, folks, if you want to follow our up-to-date daily New York Giants content, make sure to check us out on all of our social media platforms on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter at bigblueavenue. Appreciate all of your support. So, I didn't get a chance to put in a 53-man roster prediction, but I wanted to break it down, share my thoughts, and why the Giants might have went certain places, and reveal to you guys what I originally had for each position. So, first and foremost, no surprise here. The Giants stick with just three quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart, and Jameis Winston. We saw Dart take the QB2 reps in the preseason. Brian Daboll was non-committal when saying who the backup would be behind Russell Wilson, as in who would get the first crack if Wilson were to get benched during the season. No Tommy DeVito on the 53-man roster. He has since been released. Definitely a tough player to lose. I don't expect him to clear waivers. We know the Raiders traded for Kenny Pickett today, but a team like the Jets or the Colts, teams that may be looking for some additional QB depth, might be interested in DeVito's services, especially the Jets. I mean, I'm sure DeVito would love to just stay in the same area and change locker rooms. As much as he wanted to stay a Giant, being a Jet is not a terrible consolation prize, being that his former teammate Tyrod Taylor is in that quarterback room as well. So if DeVito comes back on the practice squad by any slim hope, great. But if not, thank you, Tommy Cutlets. It was a great ride for the past two seasons, and who knows, maybe he'll be a Giant again one day. All right, running backs. I was a little bit surprised by this one. I had Turbo Miller making the 53 along with these three. They decided to cut Dante. They expect him back on the practice squad again. There's less than a 1% chance that a player will be claimed by another team. Back in 2023, there was an experiment. Over 853 players went through waivers. Only 24 of them got claimed. I think DeVito gets claimed. I think maybe Greg Dulcich gets claimed, and that's a big maybe. Everyone else, I think, is coming back if the Giants choose to bring him back on the practice squad. Tracy, Singletary, and Scadaboo make a lot of sense. You know, some people weren't happy with Singletary over Turbo. Guys, it's preseason. Turbo needs to refine his pass blocking skills if he's going to stick on a 53. Singletary is a vested veteran. I would not feel comfortable going into the season with just Tracy, Turbo, and Scat. Scat's been dealing with some injury issues. He's a rookie. Tracy just entering year two. You need a veteran voice in the locker room. It definitely goes a long way. You know, Singletary was signed to a 3-year deal. Wouldn't exactly make sense to cut him after just 1 year. And he does bring some value to this roster. I mentioned the pass blocking. He can get an occasional carry or two. Eventually, I think it'll be a 50-50 timeshare between Tracy and Scadaboo, but it's nice to have Motor in there as well. Next up, the wide receiver room. They go 6, but it's an interesting 6. The first 4, I think we knew that's what it would be. Neighbors, Slayton, Wandale, and Jalen Hyatt. Gunnar Olszewski over Amir Smith-Marset is definitely an interesting one. I had Gunnar making it over Smith-Marset, but I did not have Beaux Collins making it over little Jordan Humphrey. I thought he was going to be that 6th receiver. So I got 5 out of the 6 right here. Beaux Collins, the only UDFA to make it out of Notre Dame. He played one of his college games in MetLife last season against Navy. He scored a touchdown in that game. He was awesome. He's also really good. His chemistry with Russ, catching that deep ball in the preseason. He's also shown some awesome flashes in camp, beating out some of the other veterans on the roster like Humphrey, Zach Pascal, just to name a few. Olszewski was the Giants' primary kick and punt returner in 2023. He was hurt in 2024. After making the 53, the Giants went out and they signed Smith-Marset. Again, Olszewski showed more in preseason. I think the Giants are ready to bring back ISM on the 53 this year until, quite frankly, Gunnar just outplayed him, and he did more as a receiver, as a backup slot receiver. I'm not saying Gunner's going to go in and have a bunch of receiving yards this year. No, that's not the case. But Olszewski's a more experienced player who's been with the Giants for a while now, and I think he is their preferred choice. I think ISM was their backup choice last year due to Olszewski's injury, and I'm pumped to have Gunner back. Next up, the tight end room. Theo Johnson, Daniel Bellinger, Chris Manhertz, and Thomas Fidone. This was arguably the most interesting positional group that the Giants had. Ultimately, I thought there was a strong chance the Giants would keep Greg Dulcich, but the more I thought about it, he's an older version of Thomas Fidone, and I think Dulcich has plateaued at this point. He is not a good run blocker or pass blocker at the tight end position. You kept Chris Manhertz and Daniel Bellinger for blocking. Fidone and Johnson are not bad blockers either, but their primary specialty is receiving. You got Bellinger, who could also play some fullback. Chris Manhertz, the chemistry with Russ on the team last year makes sense. Despite Dulcich flashing in preseason, again, he was there late in games. I know he started some games, had good chemistry with Dart. I think the Giants think there's a high probability he can come back on the practice squad, which is why they expose him to waivers. The Giants are also receiving some trade calls for Daniel Bellinger in addition to Jalen Hyatt. Both of those guys have struggled so far since being Giants. Bellinger had a great rookie year. Last couple of years hasn't been so great. I think he's never really recovered from that eye injury issue that he was having. But yeah, Bellinger still brings value to a football team. And I think with Dulcich going, I think that signals that Theo Johnson is going to be insane this year. He's definitely a guy to target in your fantasy football leagues in the mid to late rounds. All right, next up, the offensive line. Giants have 10 offensive linemen, and the back two guys in Chatman and Stinney were not two that I thought would make it. I had the Giants going with 9. I had Jake Kubis in there since he made the 53 last year, and I think Kubis had flexibility at center. He got outplayed by Chatman in the preseason. Chatman, the vested veteran, who the Giants did sign on a 2-year deal when they signed them in free agency last year, but Chatman had a season-ending injury in training camp and was unable to play. So, starting 5 makes sense. Thomas, Runyon, Schmitz, Van Roten, and Illuminor. Hudson, Neal, Beaux, Chatman, and Stinney. Giants are only likely to keep 8 of these guys active on game day. I don't see the Giants making too many changes here. Josh Azudu will start the season on the injured reserve, so he will be out for at least the first 4 games, I believe. I had him on the bubble. I didn't want him to make the roster. I'm done with Azudu, but he does have that tackle guard flexibility that Dable and Kafka like. He did look better in the preseason. I think Carmbasilla's done a good job with him. I think we'll see Azudu at some point this season as he started games in each of his 3 seasons, but the reason why I had him out originally on mine is because I thought James Hudson was his replacement, and I thought drafting Marcus Beaux, I'm thinking, yeah, writing's on the wall. And when you sign Hudson and Beaux, it forced Neal to learn how to play guard if he was going to stick around on this team. They could cut Aaron Stinney in the coming days and replace him with somebody else that they claim off waivers, but I think this is a solid 10 to have. The O-line depth is much better this season, and Marcus Beaux showed flashes in the preseason. So despite the right side of the line not having contract security after this season, I think the Giants are in good hands with Marcus Beaux. Maybe they'll draft a lineman next year. You know, John Michael Schmitz is still a little questionable, but I do think if Andrew Thomas stays healthy, this offensive line has some nice potential. Next up, the Giants keep 4 edge rushers, although Chauncey Golston is probably going to line up on the interior more often than not. Burns, Thibodeau, Carter. I mean, this pass rusher is going to be insane on top of Dexter Lawrence. All right, interior defensive line, a.k.a. defensive tackles. I don't love the interior defensive line naming convention for this position group. We should call them defensive tackles. Dexter Lawrence, Raheem Nunez-Roches, Roy Robertson-Harris, Darius Alexander, the 3rd-round rookie out of Toledo, and D.J. Davidson sticks around for his contract year. So, Jeremiah Ledbetter was cut. Jordan Riley was cut, 2023 late round pick. They also cut Elijah Chatman, who made the 53 last year, the UDFA out of SMU. I hope Chatman comes back on the practice squad. I think that just speaks volumes to the better depth the Giants have this season, bringing in Roy Robertson Harris via free agency and Alexander from the draft. I do think the other DT spot next to Dexter is a concern, but if Alexander can develop into that guy, that would be awesome because Roy Robertson Harris, he's a veteran backup, in my opinion. He may start some games early on in the season. Davidson's a long-term backup. Nunez Roches is on a contract year. They probably won't bring him back after this season, but keeping 5 was interesting instead of 6 for sure. I had Chatman making it on top of these 5. So the Giants keep 1 less defensive tackle. They keep 1 extra inside linebacker. They go with Bobby Okereke, Mike McFadden, 2 obvious starters, Darius Muasau, Chris Bort, and Demetrius Flanagan-Foles, who came over from Kansas City in the offseason. Flanagan-Foles, I think there's a real chance he does not make the Week 1 53. I think they might try to replace him when the waivers come in tomorrow. We'll see, guys like Chad Muma are out there, former early round draft picks. It'll be interesting to see what happens there, or if we're looking at drafting a linebacker early next season. Next up, the Giants kept 7 corners. Don't love it, don't hate it, because the Giants only kept 3 safeties, which we'll get into next. But Giants more viewing this as like, all right, let's keep 10 DBs. Makes sense. Paulson Adebo, Deontay Banks, Drew Phillips, Cordell Flott were the 4 locks. Although Flott might be starting over Deontay Banks in Week 1, which I think Flott deserves it because Banks was playing in preseason games pretty late into the first half. Definitely trying to earn his role back. I think Flott outplayed him in training camp in the preseason. Nick Jones makes it. He showed some potential this offseason. Good for him. Art Green making it as well, a bit of a surprise. I know he was on the bubble. He was closer to making it than people had thought. I did not have him on my list. I also didn't have Corey Black, the other 7th-round draft pick, on top of Thomas Fedoni. Thought the Giants would go 6 here. Trey Hawkins did not make the cut. Former 6th-round draft pick by Big Blue back in 2023. Not sure if he'll be back on the practice squad or not. So definitely a disappointing tenure with Big Blue for Hawkins, who did start a few games in 2023. 7 corners. That's going to be very, very interesting. I'd expect 1, maybe 2 of these guys to not be active on game day, and we'll see if these 7 stick, right? I think Art Green might get bumped if the Giants decide to make a move. Safeties, they only kept 3. Javon Holland, Tyler Nubin, and Dane Belton. Holland, they signed from Miami. Nubin entering his 2nd year. Belton entering a contract year, has been a good special teams player, can play in 3 safety sets. I like what he brings to the table. Safeties cut were Raheem Lane and Kevon Wallace. I thought the Giants would keep Wallace originally. Then when they cut Wallace, I thought they would keep Lane. I was wrong on both of those. So the Giants keep 3 safeties. Special teams, same old for the 4th year in a row now. Gano, Gill, and Kreider. And that's pretty much it, guys. I'm interested to see what happens with Tommy DeVito, which team he will sign with. Biggest surprise, I think Elijah Chatman definitely over Greg Dulcich. I didn't see the Giants keeping 5 tight ends. I thought Dulcich might make it over Bellinger or Manhertz. I always thought Fedoni was going to make the team. Yeah, definitely Elijah Chatman. The fact that they didn't go with 6 here, being that they had a lot of issues stopping the run last year. And outside of Dexter Lawrence, Chatman gives their most pop rushing the QB from that interior spot on the defensive line. But then again, they drafted Abdul Carter. They signed Chauncey Golston, guys who can do it a little bit better, I guess, than Elijah Chatman. So looking back at it, I guess you can make an argument for why the Giants might prefer Elijah Chatman on their practice squad, at least to start the 2025 season. Now, who should Big Blue claim off waivers? I'm not so sure what they're going to do. They could try to bring Ty Summers back when his injury settles in the dust. Chad Muma, another linebacker I like. They're definitely going to bring in a 4th safety. Tony Jefferson was on the team back in 22. He was cut. Mike Edwards was also cut. Those were a couple guys I could think of. Receivers, I'm not so sure what the Giants do there. They might try to look from other teams to see if they can upgrade maybe over Beaux Collins. I'm not so sure, or if they try to add a seventh or try to stack one on the practice squad. Guys cut that I think will be back on the practice squad. I think Jay Kubis, Turbo Miller, D. Williams, Juice Wells will all definitely be back. Elijah Chatman and Jermaine Terry as well. Makari Page, Brian Hudson, the center, Stone Forsythe, Dalen Cambry, DeQuan Felton. Trace Ford was awesome off the edge in the preseason. He missed the 53 cut. And finally, Jude Mikatomne, the kicker out of Rutgers, Irish-born international exemption. Out of the NFL's pathway program, look, Graham Gano's 38 years old. Eventually, he's going to retire sooner than later. Having Jude Mikatomne is not a bad option moving forward. He'll enter his second year on the Giants practice squad. So, folks, let me know what you think below in the comments section about my initial 53-man roster breakdown. Which moves do you like? Which moves do you not like? Who do you think made it that you weren't expecting to? Who do you wish made it that didn't? Make sure to follow us below on all of our social media platforms on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Big Blue Avenue. Appreciate you all, folks. And without further ado, let's go Big Blue.